Good afternoon, BookTube. It's Tony here from Locks to Reads. I just wanted to talk about my 2025 reading plans. Now, as usual, I have many plans for many books, most of which I will probably never get around to doing. There are things that I have thoughts about doing. I have a plan to read. I don't want to call it the canon because that's not quite what it is. But starting with the Epic of Gilgamesh and working through to wherever, the end of time, or whenever I die, and that's part of my plans. I've read. I started it and restarted it because I've read the Epic of Gilgamesh twice now, and enjoyed it very much. It's worth reading. The Penguin Classics version has an excellent introduction and notes, which helps with the book. Now, then it's supposed to be ancient Egypt. Now, I've read a couple of collections or anthologies of writing from ancient Egypt, which mixes up sort of fiction, poetry, religious documents, business documents, laws, etc. And I've also got the Egyptian Book of the Dead to read, which I understand isn't really a book. It's more a collection of spells. So there's and around those books, I was planning to do some reading on Egyptian history in general, and then the plan was to move then on to ancient Greece, which is a lot of plays and philosophy, and then on to ancient Rome. But also there'll be in there, because it's in publication also. In there would be ancient China, ancient India, ancient basically ancient in Hindu texts, etc., etc., etc. Now that's potentially part of the plan. The only thing I've put together certainty is I'm going to read one book from each year of my life up until 2025, because that's where we are. So from 1971 to 2025, one book each year. Now, my question is whether to tie that in with reading every winner of the Booker Prize since it was launched. I've just finished. I read the 1968 winner, the first winner, PH Newby's book, and by January I could read the other one, because there's a missing Booker in 1970, and then start in 1971. Now I've read some of the Booker Prize winners, so when it gets to a year when that happens, I'll take one out. So the question is, do I do a separate list 1971, which I've done already, or do I do the Booker list? See, this is what happens with plans. I have a number of series to finish, but I won't talk about those now. There's also a couple of projects that I've been working on. I don't know whether to get the books out or not. I have a William Blake project, a Milton project, both of which involve reading their works and works about them. So with Blake, I've got. Actually, I'm going to reach down and get these. Whoa. So with Blake, I've got Peter Ackroyd's biography. Peter Ackroyd's a writer that I quite like. As you see, I have started it, but heaven forfend, I used a highlighter to start noting it. Then, of course, I've got this, which is Blake's Poetry and Designs. This is a beautiful book, by the way. It contains poems and designs. I've read some of Blake's work. I've always been fascinated by Blake. As it says, look, it's illustrations, and so there's that. And as I said, there's Milton, which would be, I've got down here somewhere. Look at me reaching across. Milton's The Major Works, and I've got a couple of biographies. So, and my current reading, English Civil War reading, has made me really want to read Milton. Um, it, so there's those potentially. Alyssa, aka Nerdy Nurse Reads on BookTube, is doing a year with Edith Wharton. I'm tempted to join that. Might not. Basically, everything's up in the air. I my 2020. The only certainty in 2025 is the one book from each year since 1971. The question is whether those books will be the Booker Prize winners for those years. And I'm definitely not going to reread the winners of the last two, because I think Orbital was fine, but I think it's been set. It's not a book I would have voted as the winner. And Prophet Song I thought was an awful book, for various reasons. But yeah, as I said, the potential with that is where I've read one, I'll swap out a book for another book from that year. So that's the certainty is 1971 to 2025. The format of that is, I would like to read, as I said, read more poetry, and I've got, because I had a run of 3 years where I read a lot of poetry, and this year I haven't read as much. Basically, there's no a lot of people with 2025 goals. A lot of people will have certainties, and I'm never that certain about what I want to read. I go down rabbit holes. I get carried away by other people's plans. I have a number of writers who I was planning to read all their books. Barbara Pym. Jean Rhys. Actually, I've read all of Jean Rhys's novels. I have only the short story collection to go, which I could actually finish this month, and then I'll have read everything fictional that Jean Rhys ever published, which would be nice. It's a short. Jean Rhys is an ideal person to read all the works of, because she only wrote 5 novels, and they're all very short, and a collection of short stories. So it's a fairly easy one, and I've done the same with Tove Jansson. I've read, I think, pretty much everything she ever wrote. Well, it's published in English anyway. But there are others that I was planning to do the same thing with. I said Barbara Pym, Dorothy L. Sayers. Who else is there? Oh, Jane Austen, the Brontes. Especially after I read Emily Bronte's poetry, which I love much more than I liked Wuthering Heights. And as I'm thinking, so I've got more and more books coming onto the list. Now, I'm also caught in two minds between. Now, this is going to sound slightly melodramatic, but I'm caught in two minds between the fact that life is finite, there are a lot of books and not a lot of time, and my desire to read more deeply, and to do something with the notes that I take from books, apart from just file them away and forget about them. I've watched lots of videos recently about journaling and note taking. My note taking is very arbitrary. I can't seem to find one system that works. And I often write my reviews straight after I finish the book, hot off the presses, so to speak. Which means there's almost no. This is a terrible thing to say on a book show, but there's not a lot of thought between. It's just feeling rather than thought. Also, I'm also not sure I have the tools for in-depth literary analysis. I might be wrong about that. I could have, but I can only really talk about how a book made me. Right, fundamentally, did I like the book? How did what were the things that I got that I most enjoyed about it, and what else it reminds me of? That's the other thing that I often find with a review. It's like, oh, that I read that, and that reminds me of this book. And that has a knock-on effect of reading from book to book. Book tag. I mean, that's another option for 2025. Book tag. So, yeah. So this is a 2025 reading plan, not having any plans at this point video. I'm not sure how useful this is to anyone. Some of these suggestions you might find interesting. As I said, there are other writers on my list of people I want. Oh, I do want to finish the Iain M. Banks Culture series. I'm up to Matter, which is the next book to read. Oh, Murakami, that's another one that I think I've read 15 of his books so far, and there's about 6 or 7 to go. But the next one is 1Q84, which, as you all know, is a big book. And I've been putting it off and putting it off. Not because I don't want to read it, but because I'm aware of the amount of time I'm going to have to sacrifice to read it. There's so many on the list of people. Elizabeth Taylor, not that one, the other one. I'm just looking at my shelves over here. Dickens. Yeah, I mean, George Elliot. I've got to finish reading Dance to the Music of Time by Anthony Powell, which I've started and which Alyssa, aka Nerdy Nurse Reads, has started with me, and I'm much behind on that. It's just too many. It's just too many. I'm going to definitely. Oh, the other definite thing. Now I've remembered. I'm definitely going to be rereading the Discworld series. I've done the first 2, and I'm going to try and read 1 a month, and just as long until that's done. It's a reread in most cases. There's a few that I don't think I read the first time round, but that's a reread. And I have decided just today that I'm definitely going to reread. Well, I'm going to reread Douglas Adams's novels. I'm going to rewatch the TVs. Well, these are all multiple reads, by the way, because I've read, watched, and heard these numerous times, and re-listened to the original radio series. And probably in the order of radio series. Well, I'll start with the radio series because that's where it all started. And I remember enjoying that a lot. And it's been a while since I listened to it. I used to listen to it all the time. I had it on cassette, and somewhere on the line, like all my cassettes, it's disappeared off the face of the earth. Yeah. So this rambling video is no plans for 2025, plans for 2025. Now, if anybody feels hotly interested in any of these, then post in the comments. If this is, and if you find any of these you want to do with me, then as I said in the comments, I'll put some rambling notes in with this video just so people can sort of see what I was vaguely talking about. And that's about it. I'm sorry if this isn't. I know everybody else seems to have really actual solid plans for 2025, but I know that if I had solid plans for 2025 on December the 17th, which is my brother's birthday, so happy birthday to my little brother, they would go out the window on January the 2nd. So I think my vague plan is my plan. I'm going to read something in 2025 from multiple parts of this. I am actually quite committed to the Milton thing at the moment, because, as I said, I've been reading up on the Civil War. It comes up a lot. Then I've been meaning to read Paradise Lost for a long time. So that's pretty much a certainty. But yeah, comments, thoughts, whatever. And I hope you didn't find this too annoying. And if you did, don't tell me. Have a good day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.